The Attorney General's testimony was new information and fairly shocking. The fact that there are tax credit dollars that are not being diverted to the general fund as they normally would, and instead they're going to these school tuition organizations, some of which aren't even spending them. They're essentially amassing funds in their bank accounts that were supposed to go towards state programs. And so that was very shocking testimony, and I'm interested to see what the next step from the Attorney General's office will be. Hopefully they'll take some action to bring that money back into the state general fund as opposed to sitting in these private accounts.
Were you surprised to hear some of those dollar figures?
Yeah, and I was somewhat surprised. I had talked to some of these STOs that had actually already told me that they had millions of dollars in money sitting in bank accounts that they couldn't spend, that essentially there were not enough kids to serve. And that's millions of dollars that should be in the state general fund paying for some of the vital services that we've been cutting for the last 2 years. The legislature can't just say we're going to sweep that money, but I would say the fact that it's not possible, that's not what I got out of the testimony. What I got out of the testimony is they could go to a judge, and the judge could order them to return that money because state law requires that that money be allocated within a year from the time it's contributed. So they're essentially breaking state law, and I think any judge should be able to look at that statute and order them to return the money.
Should they be easing the requirements then, the eligibility requirements for students receiving this money?
Well, that's one option, but the fact of the matter is right now the requirements are what they are, and they're not following the current requirements. And so in the future, if we do ease the restrictions and they're able to spend that money under the new guidelines, then that's what happens. But right now, the guidelines say they have to have already spent that money. And if they don't, there's got to be a mechanism for us to recover those funds. Well, we're all going to have to get together and look at the product of these meetings and determine what our next steps are. But I think there's definitely some reform necessary, especially in just clarifying the statute as to what the intent is. We'll get together over the next 2 months, and hopefully we'll have some legislation to introduce in January.